Hey, everybody. Welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy.
Very most popular person in Israel. But here it doesn't translate. It's a strange thing. The United States election is the most important election in the history of Israel, actually. If you think about it, how crazy does that sound? But it's true. With all I have done for Israel, I received only 24% of the Jewish vote. Now think of this. I really haven't been treated very well, but that's the story of my life. You have to defeat Kamala Harris. More than any other people on earth, Israel, I believe, has to defeat her. It hurts me to say it. You're going to still vote for Democrats, and it doesn't make sense. I say all the time that any Jewish person that votes for her, especially now, her or the Democrat Party, should have their head examined. Jewish people that's supposed to love Israel in 2020. So remember, I got 25%. Now I did all of these things, and I got 29%. Think of it. So I wasn't treated right. I really haven't been treated right. So if I don't win this election, in my opinion, the Jewish people would have a lot to do with the loss.
Okay, there is so much to unpack there.
A lot.
That was Donald Trump yesterday giving a speech on fighting anti-Semitism. We will get to that crazy shit in a second. We also have Anthony, the Mooch, Scaramucci, back in the back room today. Always fun to talk with the Mooch. We'll get to him in a second. But first, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you listening, and we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and or post on our social media, and we'll read some feedback next time. And if you like the podcast, please follow or subscribe and rate and review, and to be notified every time we post a new episode. But we got to start with the unfathomable irony that was a speech to announce his initiative to fight anti-Semitism, also known as the Let's Scapegoat the Dirty Jews Summit. What the fuck?
I mean, this is his playbook always, and he doesn't really understand the difference between Israel and Jews. Like, the two to him mean exactly the same thing.
But he also doesn't understand the difference between fighting anti-Semitism and being an anti-Semitic shitwad.
Completely. He's been anti-Semitic his whole life. I mean, he's made comments for decades about wanting to have a Jew do his accounting, or all sorts of comments throughout his life.
That's a good Jew comment.
There you go.
You don't have to wear a yellow star for that.
Some of my favorite accountants have been Jews.
There you have it.
You know, he is quadrupling down on all of the ugliest tropes about Jews, about American Jews, caring more about Israel than they care about America. But just the referencing to the campaign, and if he loses, it's going to be the Jews' fault. I mean, that's some serious scapegoating shit right there.
And scary.
And scary.
Yeah. I mean, one interesting thing that he did say, if there was anything, is that he said 29% of Jews voted for him, which is exactly the percentage of Jews that are polling in favor of Trump right now.
Yeah, well...
That's scary.
Well, if you break that down demographically and you consider the far-right extremist wing of American Judaism, there are Jews who simply are one-issue voters. And in this election, they see him the way he sees himself, which is the great protector of Israel, which is just probably the furthest thing from the truth. He's incited more chaos and violence within Israel with his buddy Netanyahu than anything else. But I still can't get over the fact that this was supposed to be an address on fighting anti-Semitism. It's like, all right, thank you for coming to my Let's Fight Anti-Semitism Summit, you filthy Jews. And here's what I'm going to tell you, you're filthy Jews. You're disgusting, and you're responsible for all the evil in the world, you filthy Jews.
Every speech he ever gives devolves into his grievance. He's being mistreated.
Well,
that's what it always is.
Like the black journalism.
Yes,
like when he went to the black journalists.
Yes.
Like, I mean, come on. We didn't know she used to be black, or she was black. She's only Indian. I mean, it's the same nonsense.
The most surprising thing about that address is that we've discovered that he's been poorly treated.
I know.
I mean,
I know.
God, we didn't know that. I love when he goes, story of my life. Well, that's the one fucking thing he said right. It is the story of his life. Have you ever heard anyone ever talk about how much they've been poorly treated than this guy? Which is why it's such a mystery that his supporters, the cultists, think he's so big and tough. He whines more than a toddler.
Yeah, but actually that's how his supporters relate to him, because they all have grievances. That's his appeal. They are unhappy that there's too many minorities taking over where they apparently think that they used to have a job, and they blame everybody else for their problems.
Yeah. Well, look, I just want to say as a Jew to Donald Trump, go fuck yourself, okay? Emphasis on go fuck yourself. He apparently has a different take on his performance at the debate than everybody else. Let's play this clip.
Look at the debate. I walked off. I said, that's the debate. You know, they said I'm the GOAT in debates because I had a lot of debates and I became president. And the GOAT means greatest of all time. He's a GOAT. But what a great step.
He's in the neighborhood in terms of comparing himself to an animal, but he's not a goat. He's actually a pig. That's what he is. Let's play this other clip from the rally.
So I'd call up my wife and I'd say, baby, who could draw crowds? Nobody can draw crowds like me. Nobody, not even close. I'm the greatest of all time, maybe greater even than Elvis, because Elvis had a guitar. I don't have a guitar. Elvis had a guitar. I don't have the privilege of a guitar. But I'd say, baby, who could do it like me? Nobody can do it like me. How great am I?
He does a great Jerry Lewis impression. I don't have a guitar, baby. What is he talking about? I mean, it's psychobabble.
That entire statement was a lie, because there's no way he called his wife and said any of that.
All right. So then we go to the dogs and the cats thing, which is now proven false. The woman who made up the story literally says, oh, fuck, I made it up. I'm sorry. There's not one shred of evidence from Springfield, Ohio law enforcement agencies, wildlife preservation agencies. It is completely 100% fake. J.D. Vance, in an interview this week, literally admitted that we made it up to get the media focused on this fake issue. Let's make up a fake story so we can get the media focused on a fake issue.
Well, he did provide the Wall Street Journal with information about a woman named Anna Kilgore, who called the police department and said that she thought a Haitian neighbor had taken her cat. But actually what happened when the Wall Street Journal investigated this is that her cat, Miss Sassy, had gone down to the basement for 5 days. Miss Sassy had just gone to the basement for 5 days. She discovered the cat and realized that she was mistaken. So that was the only thing.
I had this thought yesterday. You think about Trump and Vance and Republicans' obsession with vaginas and uteruses. And then you think about this bullshit story in Springfield about they're eating the cats. Kind of figured out, like, the Republican male. I think their problem is...
Oh, no, don't say it.
None of them are eating much pussy. Okay, so...
What you're really saying
that might
is
explain a lot.
The male Republican Party are all incels? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know.
Wouldn't you bet that you're more likely to be a Republican if you're an incel?
More likely?
I was trying to be nice.
And also to present the serious side of this, the bomb threats at hospitals and schools continue. Trump doesn't seem to give a shit about that. J.D. Vance doesn't give a shit about that. And speaking of J.D. Vance, this is his fucking state. How much money has the state of Ohio, taxpayer money, wasted on policing and investigating this non-story? And J.D. Vance, as the senator of Ohio, has literally put a target on the backs of not just Haitians, but black and brown people residing in Ohio. This is a guy who's creating such chaos in his own state as a senator. Makes you wonder what kind of chaos he'd create as vice president.
Well, this is all they're doing is exploiting everything they can in order to bring out the racist vote.
Yeah, racist and sexist. So let's play this quote from Huckabee.
Not only do my kids serve as a permanent reminder of what's important, they also keep me humble. You can walk into a room like this where people cheer when you step onto the stage, and you might think for a second that you're kind of special. Then you go home and your kids remind you very quickly you're actually not that big of a deal. And ours are pretty good at it. So my kids keep me humble. Unfortunately, Kamala Harris doesn't have anything keeping her humble.
First of all, humble? You mean the kind of humble that makes you stand on the stage and proclaim that you're better than women who don't have children? That kind of humble?
Love thy neighbor. Love that Christian righteousness.
Every time I hear Sarah Huckabee, all I can think of is that she might actually be way dumber than Sarah Palin.
I think she's more evil than Sarah Palin.
Well, she's also possibly easily as corrupt.
Sarah Palin just wasn't, to me, she just wasn't bright. This one knows exactly what she's doing because she's learned from her daddy.
I think her father's smarter than her.
And I'm so sick of the intentional mispronunciation of Kamala. It's like an orchestrated, party-wide effort to purposefully mispronounce her name. And so I've decided that from now on, she is Sally Huckleberry Saunders. And that's what I'm going to call her until she gets Kamala Harris right. Anyway, what else we got? We got, North Carolina Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. You know who he is, right? He's the guy running against Josh Stein, the Democrat, for the governorship in North Carolina. He's kind of unhinged, sexist.
A little bit.
Homophobic, transphobic, porn-obsessed, racist, anti-Semitic, Holocaust denier who called himself on a porn site a bunch of years ago a black Nazi, and said that slavery was pretty cool. If they brought it back, he'd buy a few. No. He'd buy a few. That's his words.
But not only did he call himself a black Nazi, he said he was sexually aroused by secretly watching women in showers.
When he was 14.
And transgender women.
He likes pornography featuring transgender people.
Yeah. And, of course, Donald Trump called him Martin Luther King Jr. on steroids. Okay? And he has vowed to stay in the race. The GOP, shockingly, is standing behind him. And this is really interesting because North Carolina is probably now more in play for Democrats than perhaps Georgia. Not just the governor role, but down ballot and the state itself. And so Democrats are giddy. Let him stay in the race. Stay in the race. Anyway, that gets us to our winners and losers.
My winner, the Biden administration's coordinated policies resulted in a dramatic drop in deaths from drug overdoses for the first time in decades, according to the U.S. public health data. My loser, Trump, speaking at a campaign event centered on denouncing anti-Semitism in America, said that if I don't win this election, then the Jewish people will have a lot to do with it.
My loser is Teamsters President Sean O'Brien, who couldn't manage to endorse Harris-Walz even after Trump sided with Musk, saying how great it would be to fire people who are in a union. My winner, Gregory Floyd, president of Local 237, the Teamsters chapter that represents the 24,000 public sector workers in New York City and Long Island, who came out and endorsed Kamala Harris and Walz.
My winner, LA Dodgers pitcher Shohei Ohtani, who last night became baseball's first member of the 50-50 club and who had perhaps the best game ever for a player, going 6 for 6 with 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, and 2 stolen bases. My loser, Arkansas Governor Sally Huckleberry Saunders, for her disgusting comments about Kamala Harris and childless women, and for being one of those crass, disrespectful juveniles who keeps intentionally mispronouncing Kamala. All right, that gets us to the weekly rant. So after a decade of promoting and inciting violence, and now with the temperature in America as hot as it's ever been, and with 2 assassination attempts on Donald Trump in the last 2 months, Trump and his pathetic sycophants are now blaming it all on Democrats and their incendiary rhetoric. Really? Just what exactly have Democrats been saying to promote and incite violence? What's the specific rhetoric they've been spewing? Because as far as anyone with 2 eyes, 2 ears, And a half a brain knows it's been all Trump and Republicans. Trump vomits out nonstop divisive, dangerous, incendiary rhetoric that has actually resulted in death. Ever since he descended that Trump Tower escalator in 2015 to launch his hate campaign, he's torn this country apart, pitting American against American, black against white. And that nationalistic racist fever reached a peak on January 6th, 2021, when thousands of raging white people stormed the Capitol, beating the shit out of cops, pissing and shitting all over the place, and destroying and stealing property. At his rallies, Trump's encouraged his MAGA cultists to punch people in the face. He said he'd pay their legal bills. He'd like to use our military to assassinate his opponents. He's put targets on the backs of Haitians and other immigrants, the LGBTQ plus community, Jews, women, doctors who perform abortions, and others. He wants to see people get hurt and killed, especially if it's in service to him, because he's a sociopath, and it excites him. But sure, it's all Democrats' fault. He blamed, quote, the other team for the recent assassination attempts on his life, despite the fact that both shooters are Republicans. And while we're at it, I suppose we should blame America's gun violence epidemic on Democrats too, because just as Trump ridiculously claimed Democrats wanted Roe v. Wade overturned, I'm sure he would also claim it's Democrats who keep killing all the gun reform bills, right? Give me a break. Donald Trump is constantly playing with fire. And you can finish that sentence however you want. All right, before we bring out Anthony, the Mooch, Scaramucci, don't forget, stick around for a special episode, special birthday episode of Just Jeff. Anthony Scaramucci, he is the founder and managing partner of global investment firm SkyBridge and founder and chairman of SALT, a global thought leadership forum and venture studio. He's a member of the Council on Foreign Relations and a board member of the Federal Enforcement Homeland Security Foundation, and the author of 5 books, including his latest, From Wall Street to the White House and Back. He's best known for the 11 rollercoaster days he served in the Trump White House as communications director after having served on Trump's finance committee and then on his presidential transition team. Anthony, welcome back into the back room.
Always good to be with you. How's everything, Andy?
Everything is good, all things considered, although I do feel like most people, I feel like I'm living on a roller coaster. That's what it feels like, doesn't it, right now?
You get somebody mentally ill running for the presidency. So when you have that kind of mental instability, and, you know, it represents, listen, the American government now is, 30% of our GDP. If you look at the spending and you look at our overall GDP. So this is it's a big deal.
Yeah, and it's going to get crazier. We've got less than 2 months left. So look, we've now witnessed the second assassination attempt on Trump. Threats to Trump are high. Threats to Kamala Harris are high. Biden, as president, he has to have high security detail. Are we having a Secret Service crisis right now?
Yeah. I mean, listen, we're probably having a crisis. There was definitely a failure in the July, what took place in Pennsylvania. That was definitely shortcomings on the part of the Secret Service. Obviously, there's a report coming that's going to detail what those shortcomings are. Thank God the former president wasn't hurt. I mean, I think you and I agree, as do most sane Americans, that there's no room for political violence. We need to settle our disputes using the ballot box. Unfortunately, the country does have a history of political violence. We've had a couple of presidents killed while president, assassinated. We've had others attempted assassination attempts. I think Jerry Ford went through at least 2 of them. Franklin Roosevelt was almost killed a few weeks before he was inaugurated. So we can list the litany of political violence. I mean, the country, we have to do our best to try to not have it, and we need more Secret Service. I think President Biden, was right to call for more Secret Service help and more personnel and more money. But I will say this about the Secret Service yesterday, just to finish up. I think they did a very good job. They were running advance for the president, and they caught the person, or at least they figured out a way to stop him. And one has to ask, how did he have the president's schedule, or was that just a lark? Who knows? I mean, it's very, very hard to know. But here's the thing, okay? And people can be mad at me for saying this, and that's fine. Mr. Trump calls for violence. Mr. Trump is always speaking in a violent way. The stuff that he's doing related to immigrants is ridiculous. His pillars to reattain the presidency, he has three legs to the stool. It's misogyny, racism, and anti-immigration. And so that makes him a very un-American choice to be president. And I just hope that there's less people that think like he does than think like him. And I think the vice president did a great job last Tuesday of comparing and contrasting herself to him. And she's got a lot of work to do, of course. But I don't want him shot at. I want him beaten at the ballot box.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad you brought the subject of Trump and his rhetoric and behavior up, because it is important. It is relative to what's going on. Donald Trump plays with fire. So, like, finish that sentence, right? It's like, you know, I've had murder in my family, so I'm not about violence, but isn't he partly responsible? I'm not saying necessarily for the attacks on his own person per se, but just in the temperature that's been rising.
Well, first of all, I'm sorry for whatever tragedy has taken place in your family. I think we know that we have 400 million guns in the society. Somebody sarcastically said maybe the Republicans would pass a Save Donald Trump's Life gun reform by figuring out a way to keep crazy people away from guns. But, you know, we can debate that. You know, obviously the Australians did a good job of that. We're not doing a good job of it. Trump is calling for violence. He called for violence on the 6th of January in 2021. He's calling for violence. He says there'll be a bloodbath if he doesn't win. He screams epithets from the podium that are violent, and he's disrupted the system, and he's caused a tremendous amount of commotion in the system that our adversaries absolutely adore. You know, I had the opportunity to interview General H.R. McMaster for his new book. And in reading his book, I was getting post-traumatic stress as we went through the litany of different things that Trump did as president that were very disruptive and very harmful to the American system. Whatever you think of Joe Biden, he's more of a garden variety American president. He's executing policy without a Twitter feed. And so for me, I would like a return to normalcy. I think the only way you can get a center-right coalition reestablished with any semblance of normalcy is the elimination of Trumpism, and that requires the defeat of Donald Trump at the ballot box. I don't want to see him martyred. I don't want to see him shot at. I don't want to see anything happen to him, God forbid, from a violent perspective. Even though he's trying to incite violence, I'd like him defeated at the ballot box. And you know, listen, I have met with now many current Republicans. I was in the spin room with some of my old friends. Remember, I'm a lifelong Republican, and so some of my colleagues that I worked with on the first Trump 2016 campaign were in that spin room with me, and you can see the stress on their faces. It's one thing when you're in 2016. If you want to blame me for being a part of his campaign, no problem. I've accepted that blame already. But we now have 8 years of data on Donald Trump as a political figure. You know, and again, I'm not giving myself any alibi or excuse in 2016, but I'm just saying he was not the sitting president, not doing the damage to the society that he did. And so now you have 8 years of data, 8 years of tweets, 8 years of Truth Social, 8 years of rhetoric. How on God's earth are you still standing next to him after witnessing all of that? And so you can see it on their faces. They're older. They're weathered. They're trying to, untwist a pretzel. Just imagine being on Donald Trump's team in the spin room last Tuesday, trying to tell people that he won that debate, which he got destroyed in that debate. And by the way, Andy, he got destroyed so badly. I know the son of a bitch so well. At 11:07, he walked into the spin room and went on television with Sean Hannity. And so he didn't do that after the first debate with Joe Biden in June.
Yeah, you don't need to spin.
He knew he won that one.
Yeah,
but he certainly knew he lost this one. So he needed to do the Roy Cohn deny, deflect and deny, and assert that you won something that you didn't win. So. So what we're hearing now, these assassination attempts, unfortunately, I think do help him. I think they embolden his supporters and in this quasi martyr-like situation. Remember, this is going to be a turnout the vote election.
Right.
I think people have decided. I don't think there's a lot of undecided people out there. And so it's, can the Harris team organize, get their group out with more volume than the Trump team? And so when he's being shot at, it does galvanize his support.
Well, this second assassination attempt also comes in a week where he was asked to condemn the bomb threats at least four hospitals in Springfield, Ohio, and he refused to do that. So just an interesting dichotomy in terms of who and what all of this is going to appeal to. I happen to agree with you. I can't imagine anybody is still sitting around going, gee, I wonder who I should vote for. Like, if you don't know now, But I do think there are more voters, more Democrats in the Democratic coalition, from young to old to people of color to college students. So I think there's more people that are going to continue to see him as a major threat than there are people that will see him more like a martyr.
I'm going to say something that doesn't reflect well on any of us, and you can react to it, okay? I think there's a group of people that don't like the idea that Barack Obama was president. I think there's a group of people that don't like a woman who's African-American and of Indian-American descent ascending to the presidency. I think people have looked at our demography. There are more Black and brown people under the age of 16 than any other group in the population. And I think there's a group of people that are seeing an impending situation demographically where Black and brown people are going to run the political system as a virtue of numbers. They don't like it. And so they want to change the rules. If the democracy is not going to mean white men are running the country, then let's change the rules and let's no longer have a democracy. And so whether people like this or not, the Republicans stand for dictatorship. That's just the facts, okay? And this is a liquidated version of the Republican Party. This is a takeover. This is a third-party candidate, Donald Trump, running under Trumpism, that liquidated. He did an M&A deal with one of the two standing traditional parties. He liquidated that party. There's nothing left of that party. The party of Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney doesn't exist anymore, which is why they're supporting Vice President Harris. And so you have one party standing for dictatorship, one party standing for generally absolute immunity for the leader, one party standing alongside a Project 2025, which calls for the liquidation of parts of the American government, 50,000 people fired, 50,000 people brought in that take loyalty tests, the FBI taken out of the Department of Justice and having it report directly to the president. So you can basically have a authoritarian Gestapo-like police force at the national level. I could go on and on about what Project 2025 is. It doesn't poll well, so he disavows it. Of course, that's his playbook, but he's got his team in there. He's got his vice presidential candidate that wrote the forward of it. And then, by the way, let's give him all that. Agenda 47, which is on his website, is 40% of Project 2025. So it's all there. He's what I'm impressed with, and this is a garish way of saying impressed, I'm impressed that they put it all out there, Andy. They'll put it all out there. Here's what we're going to do. Justice Roberts is going to give a president immunity. The irony is Biden has the same immunity, but he's not using it with impunity. But we're going to give our guy dictatorial powers in the country. We're going to also put a transition playbook, 902 pages, that's going to carefully delineate everything that we're going to do. And we're going to subvert the country. And oh, by the way, we're calling for the deportation of 15 million people. How do we even know what the criteria is? Who's legitimately here seeking asylum? Who's protected? Who's illegal? Who's legal that they're going to deem illegal to throw out of the country because maybe they don't like their political views? But then how are we going to round these people up? What are we going to do? We're going to take SWAT cars and armored vehicles. You and I are old enough to remember the Elian Gonzalez situation in Miami when that young boy was taken out of his home by SWAT team and deported to Cuba. Are we going to do that 11 million times? Where are you going to put the people? You have to ask these Republicans, so you're deporting 15 million. Yes, we are. Okay, so SWAT teams are going to come into every house, every family, take the people. Yes. Okay, now you have to have a process of deportation. Where are you going to put them? Oh, we're going to put them in camps. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, we're going to concentrate them in camps. Oh, okay. So we're going to have concentration camps in the United States.
Well, I mean, it's just to win an election. They're clearly haven't thought through the logistics on any of this stuff. They're just using it as red meat.
Well, if that's where we're going, if this is to win an election and the majority of the people or the majority of the people in the swing states that matter for a presidential election believe this, then we are now in a different country than the one we grew up in. Now, I'm not saying that the country's perfect. It started with the original sin of slavery. We had great difficulty after the Civil War when African Americans were given the right to vote and made free. We had to have a Civil Rights Act 100 years after that war to try to create more fairness in the voting system. I'm not saying that the country's perfect, but the country you and I grew up in was searching for more perfection. It may be an imperfect union with imperfect process, but it's searching for more. And I'm saying that the country that you and I grew up in, I believe we were getting things to be better. We were making progress. We were making progress on women's rights. We were making progress on African American rights, people's sexual orientation. We started to care a little less about that and care a little bit more about them having equal rights and equal representation. And so now we're talking about a regression. When Kamala Harris says we're not going back, it's a great tagline, right? But I think there's got to be more contrast here. We're talking about 1947, before Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier for professional sports. He did it through baseball. Or 2047. Which way are we going? Are we going back? Are we going to have a regression? What I know from being on the planet for 60 years, when you have autocracies and you have domineering politicians or some form of dictatorship, you lose economic rights, you lose economic power, you lose aspirational identity for a population, the meritocracy fades, and you get a group of kleptocrats that sit alongside of the leader and they funnel and plunder the nation's resources and take it for themselves. That's always happens. Okay, this country has done better because it's a different system. It's a flat, decentralized form of government with lots of checks and balances. Centralized systems do not do well. They have a tendency to be very corruptive because we know that power corrupts. There's a great interview which I would suggest you look at if you have time. You could YouTube it. It's Jack Kennedy. It's after year one in the White House. He's sitting in the rocking chair. There's two journalists talking to him. What'd you learn, President Kennedy, in your first year in the White House? And Kennedy says, well, I ran for the House of Representatives. I thought there'd be power there. My dad told me to go do that, represent my district. When I got to the Congress, there was no power. So I said to myself, the power's got to be in the Senate. And so I'm going to run for the Senate. Well, he was successful. He won the race. He became a senator. And he's like, oh, my God, there's no power here. The power must be down the other end of the road, must be in the White House down on Pennsylvania Avenue. So I'm sitting here for the last year. I can't find the power anywhere. And he said it in a very affirming, genuflecting way. He said it not derisively, but humorously, that the design of the system was such that nobody had any real power. And that made the system great, that we were able to have a flat system where you had to work to build a consensus to get things done in government. These guys want to break that.
Yeah, well, they're neo-fascists. I mean, we're not in any kind of political system that resembles anything that you and I have been familiar with in the past several decades. Dana Bash sat down with J.D. Vance over the weekend, and he basically admitted that the whole story about the dogs and the cats is made up. This comes even after the woman who started the rumors said it's fake. She apologized. No law enforcement authority has corroborated any of this stuff, yet him and Trump keep doubling and tripling down on it because it's like fascistic propaganda. It's propaganda. That's where we are.
Listen, they're running on three pillars, right? Misogyny, racism, anti-immigration. But, I asked two different constitutional law scholars, the following question. Justice Roberts' immunity ruling. If Richard Nixon, if this was 1974, would Richard Nixon be resigning from the White House? And the answer would be no. Everything that he did inside the White House, despite the breach, despite the illegality of that time, is now covered under the auspices of that immunity ruling.
Mm-hmm.
So that's everything you need to know about what's happening now, the politicization of the court, and everything you need to know about where they want to take the country. And so, so we may be in the minority. This is their words, not mine. We may be in the minority, but we're going to use the rules of the system to cavort things to serve our purpose so that we can have the tyranny of the minority now in the country. So I don't want that. You know, I love my country, and I'm a lifelong center-right person. There might be things you and I disagree with from a policy perspective, but you have to step aside from that now. This is at a higher level. This is about patriotism. This is about the Constitution, and this is about recognizing how fragile these things are. If we break this thing, it could be something that we can't go back on. You know, we can still fix the immunity thing. We could still fix the perversion of what Donald Trump did to the pardon process. You know, the pardon process used to be, yep, he has absolute power to pardon, meaning the president, but there's certain protocol and procedures that we're all going to follow to make sure that these pardons are not done arbitrarily or capriciously, or they're not done to serve the political leader. You know, imagine he gets back into power and he says, okay, you 10 guys, I want you to break the following laws. And oh, by the way, I'm going to give you a presumptive pardon so that you're completely exonerated from breaking the law. So go wreak havoc, go kill a few of my political adversaries. You'll get prosecuted, but I'll absolutely pardon you. I mean, that's something that you and I would have said under Reagan or Carter, or you pick the person. Look, say what you want about Richard Nixon. He respected the Constitution. Sure. He was a military veteran. Wrongdoing ensued. He resigned to preserve the integrity of the Constitution. Okay, say whatever you want about Gerald Ford, his exercising of the pardon of Nixon, while it was derided by Senator Kennedy, Ted Kennedy, in 1974, 35 years later in 2009, Ted Kennedy said, I got that wrong. He was trying to heal the nation, prevent a kangaroo banana court, banana republic sort of a thing. And so Jerry Ford got that right. I'm older and wiser now. I derided him in September of 74, but he used the pardon power correctly.
Yeah, well, look, there were boundaries.
Now we have, we're going to have the shootout at the OK Corral. Let's use the pardon power.
There's no boundaries. Trump co-opted Congress. He co-opted the courts. He co-opted law enforcement. Many people believe his dreadful performance, like President Joe Biden's at the first debate, is the proverbial nail in his coffin. You tweeted, quote, October surprise is going to be Trump inevitably self-destructing. Aren't we seeing that now?
We are. Yeah, we're seeing a self-destruction. We have another pause because of the assassination attempt, but we are seeing his self-destruction. When you have a 78-year-old man tweeting out that he hates Taylor Swift, those are his words, not mine.
By the way, isn't that a great strategy for winning the youth vote?
Well, but it just shows the insanity of the human being. And so what I'm hoping is he continues down that path, and then that there's enough women, there's enough independents, there's enough people that are saying, it's just a bridge too far.
What does he hope to get out of that, though? That just seems like the dumbest thing to tweet.
No. That's a triple down. I'm tripling down. Listen, I'm blowing a very hard dog whistle. I'm calling on all white males, still 40% of this electorate, to vote for me. We don't want black or brown people running things. We don't want women running things. We are white supremacists. We are racist. We are sexist. I'm calling on all of you to line up and vote for me. Okay, this is our last gasp, because the country's changing, and if I can get control of the country right now, I can turn it into a white supremacist country. And if you want that, vote for me. And let me blow hard on this dog whistle. Let me go with J.D. Vance over Nikki Haley because I'm a base feeder, and I want to get as many of you in the boat with me as possible.
Madonna has a quote that I just came across. She said this 40 years ago. Quote, "Weak men are afraid of strong women, but strong men aren't afraid of strong women." She's describing Trump.
Oh, no, he's an insecure. You've never met anybody more insecure. If you read this book, At War with Ourselves, he regales in the 13 months that he was in the position, or 43.1 Scaramucci's, he regales you with the insecurity of Donald Trump.
By the way, I love how you and me and others, that's like our new math, that the Scaramucci.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Hey, you got to own your shit in life, man. I own my shit. I know what I am.
That's why we love you, Mooch. You also tweeted there's going to be more elected Republicans coming forward, which I agree with. I think there is. And I want to ask you in a second about the Cheneys. But are there people in mind that you think, like we already heard from Bush that he's not going to do that, but who might come forward to join the Cheneys?
Tom Tillis almost said it. You know, Tom Tillis, the senator from North Carolina, was on Twitter denigrating the anti-immigrant status, the dog-eating nonsense. You know, he's closer. There's a lot of people in that Congress, a lot of people in that Senate that know that this is crazy, and a few more missteps by Trump. I think it'll be a bridge too far. You know, I think Bush, as the former commander-in-chief, has taken the position of a McMaster, has taken a position of a Mattis, Kelly. They see themselves in this sort of military construct where they want to stay above the fray of the political system. You know, McMaster doesn't endorse or deny Trump in the book, but if you read the book, you're like, how could you want this guy to return to power? It's just, there's no way you would want him to return to power.
They're saying it without saying it in a way.
They're saying it without saying it. But you know, there'll be more. There has to be. There's the person of conscience, like I said, they can't sit on the sidelines. Somebody, you know, and listen, you have to provide space for those people. You know, I think that, you know, you get somebody out of somebody's cult, you don't bitch slap them. You're all right. You're out of the cult. Give yourself a sec. Take a breath. And, you know, like Rick Scott, the poor son of a bitch. I mean, he knows he's saying things in the spin room that he doesn't believe. It's got to be tearing at his soul that he's saying those things. But he's doing it because he needs to stay in power. Governor DeWine, the Ohio Republican, is supporting Donald Trump, but he's saying things that he doesn't believe. And he's taking the position, well, I'm a Republican. He's a Republican because I'm going to support him. But, you know, he knows he's un-American.
Well, they say these things like, well, as bad as Donald Trump is, we can't have another awful Biden-Harris-like administration, which is such bullshit because we're talking about a rapist, a convicted felon, a pathologically lying dictator wannabe. You know, the false equivalencies are just stunning. You're a communications guy. You were in the Trump White House. Kamala Harris has had a pretty flawless, albeit truncated, campaign so far, but her critics are demanding that she get out there and do more sit-down interviews and press conferences. Do you think she needs to do that?
I do, but I want to defend her for a second. If you go from zero, you're flipping pancakes for your nieces, to getting a call on the 21st of July that you're now the presumptive nominee and you have to corral your delegates, you have to prevent a primary fight, an insurgent primary fight before the convention, and then you got to get yourself prepared for a debate, and then you have to merge your staff with Joe Biden's election team, okay, which, you know, there are different people in different places, but you got to merge them because that's the only way you're going to potentially win this. And then you got to go out. You got to think about the tent that she's building, okay? Bernie Sanders, Anthony Scaramucci, and Dick Cheney walk into a bar. Okay, I'll leave it there. We can give you the punchline after the election, but
who gets shot in the face?
I don't know, but we're building this very big tented coalition. And you got to give her credit for that. You have to think about this. Okay, I'm proud of this, and I hope you don't mind me being proud of this. She could have asked a lot of different people to join her the evening of the debate and to go into the spin room on her behalf, and she chose me and Olivia Troy. And, and as I said to my wife, I'm very proud of that. I helped on debate prep. They know where I stand. I've been last 5 years telling people about the warnings of Donald Trump. And she gave me an opportunity to advocate on her behalf. But that also speaks to her willingness to expand her tent. So I think she's done a very, very good job of all of this. But yes, now she has to get into the media. She has to get into the fray. She's got to get her reps in, She's going to debate Donald Trump again for sure. That's just a ruse by him. He has to debate her. He won't be able to deny himself the attention of 71 million people. And so she's got to get her reps in. She's got to be ready. She's got to answer the questions that are tough, answer the questions on her record, answer the questions about Biden, do the best she can. She's an incredibly smart, well-prepared politician, and she's a public servant, and she believes in the Constitution. What's not to like?
So the polls are definitely moving in her direction. And this may be a dumb question because I kind of know the answer, but you know him pretty well. So maybe you have a different perspective. As the election gets closer, and perhaps these numbers continue to move further in her direction, and he and his handlers start to panic, is there any scenario on this planet where we could see some kind of Trump pivot?
No, I don't see. I think the only thing, and to put some people's minds at ease, is that he doesn't want to govern. I think he's non-ideological. He wants to win to rebuke his haters. He wants to win to make some money and grift off the American people, and he wants to win so that he has some satisfaction about coming back from the loss that he had. But the problem with all that, he doesn't have any moderates with him anymore. He's got arch right-wing narco-Christians with him that want to win and then use his medium as a form of transformation of the American system. So he'll be out on the golf cart swinging golf clubs while his minions are trying to destroy the American way of living, try to get the country to look like the country that they think it should look like. I submit to you, Andy, I don't want the country to look like anybody's country but their own. There's space in this country for people to live the life that they choose. If you're ultra-Christian and you want to live a certain way, may God bless you. If you have sexual orientation that's different than mine, and you want to raise children and live your life a certain way, may God bless you. I'm not here to force my lifestyle on anybody else's. I'm here to say America is a big enough system and a big enough tent where we can all live together in harmony. I don't see why we have to jam each other, throw it down each other's throats the way we want to live.
This is the thing about Trump that fascinates me. Not only does he say the quiet parts out loud all the time, but he's just jamming his lunacy down our throats. Like, what do you make of the whole Laura Loomer situation? Like, he's gallivanting around with her, and she's so disgusting, yet it's like he doesn't care what we think about that.
Let me just say this to you. He is Laura Loomer. Don't forget that about him. When he is not doing well, he goes to the alt-right MAGA playbook. When he's not doing well, Kamala Harris just turned black. That's alt-right MAGA playbook. When he's not doing well, Barack Obama was born in Kenya. When he's not doing well, Haitian immigrants are eating dogs and cats. They're eating your pets when there's no evidence of it, but he's not doing well. So he always goes in that direction, and she represents that. She is him. He is her, and she is him. You're voting for President Loomer. Don't forget that about him.
Well, we'll leave it on that note. Mooch, thanks for coming on.
No, you're the man. Thank you for always
insightful.
including me, brother.
Yep, take care.
You got to do a home and away for me, okay? I have my producer calling you. You're going to come on my show once.
All right, sounds
good. I got to be the one answering the questions.
All right.
All right, brother?
I'm in.
All right, good luck. I like your backdrop too, man.
Take care. Jeff, or should I say, birthday boy Jeff.
Oh, you remembered.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
What are you doing in preparation for, what is this, your 53rd, 54th birthday?
What I'm doing is breathing.
I hear that as you get older in life, that's all anyone really gives a shit about when they wake up in the morning.
Yeah, that's right. That
Just
makes
make
you
it through another day.
And you know you're still alive.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So Jeff Shear is going to have 82nd birthday.
Awesome.
Okay, so all right.
What do you got for us, Jeff?
All right. So I want to, so the rest, I think this was recorded before the debate when you did SC. And so I just want to compliment you. And your prediction before the debate was unbelievable. It's like you have precognition. You said that Harris is going to wipe the floor with Trump. And no one, your other partners did not agree with you, but you were right on target. However, you made a slight little faux pas when you said
That's
that
so critical of me.
the person at the Democratic convention who said, if you vote for Harris, that doesn't make you a Democrat, that makes you a patriot. You said that was Adam Kinzinger, but it wasn't. It was the former lieutenant governor of Georgia, Jeff Duncan. And just Jeff is very partial to Jeffs, even those who don't know how to spell their first name correctly.
All right, wait a second. I believe what I said was that the gist of what all of the Republican speakers was saying was, you're not a Democrat, you're a patriot.
Right.
I wasn't necessarily attributing it to one speaker per se, but you are 100% correct. All right. You got any special birthday plans?
Yeah, I'm going to a local play in Rockland County, Stony Point. There's a Penguin Theater. We're seeing a play and then going out to dinner with friends. Mm-hmm. And then the next day, we're having another dinner because my daughter and Ricardo, her partner, are coming down to Rockland, and we're going to go out to dinner again.
Oh, very nice.
You know, I'm looking forward to it. But what I really look forward to is having one birthday every year. I don't care the number. As long as I keep having those birthdays, I'm a happy guy.
Well, here's to a lot more birthdays, Jeff.
Well, thank you so much.
As always, a pleasure. Thanks for coming on. We'll talk to you next time.
Great. Have a good one. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye. This episode of The Back Room was edited and produced by me, Andy Ostroy. It was co-edited and co-produced by Maddie Rosenberg and co-produced by Jen Hammoud. Our theme song was composed by Andrew Hollander, and our logo was designed by Cricket Langell. And special thanks to Patricia Wind. Please take a moment to rate and review the podcast, and also follow or subscribe. Until next time, keep your eyes on Washington, Hollywood, and your own backyards, and have a great week.